Yesterday I was catching up on some reading and I came across an article in the New York Times. Actually, I think it's in this morning's paper. It was online last night. And the title was, "What Should Doctors Do When We Experience a Miracle?" And it's written by a critical care doctor, and she talks about this recent experience that she's had with a COVID patient, a young man, a father. And given his challenges, neither she nor any of his colleagues expected him to survive. And she tells of a cascade of her words, a cascade of complications, including pneumonia, sepsis, devastating bleeding. By the time I met him, she says he had been deeply sedated for more than a month and was attached to a ventilator and a lung bypass machine to keep him alive. And as the days and then weeks passed, punctuated by one medical catastrophe after another, it became clear to all of us in the ICU that the damage to his lungs was not survivable. He was dying. And what happened? He survived. And then the doctor goes to some length to talk about how she was responding to this extraordinary event, but then she divines a miracle in a somewhat extraordinary way. She states, what does it mean for a miracle to happen in an intensive care unit? Well, through the word miracle, though the word miracle has a religious overtone, I am not invoking the spiritual or supernatural. She is uncomfortable in talking about religious sorts of miracles. And then if you look in any dictionary, and I checked this morning as I'm preparing this homily, the standard definition is this, and it's any definition that you might find, an extraordinary event manifesting divine intervention in human affairs. That's the kind of standard definition of a miracle. But she was uncomfortable in going that direction. Her idea of a miracle was not that at all. And the challenge that she's facing, the challenge any of us can face when we are confronted with the inexplicable, is that same challenge that we hear in today's readings, both in Ezekiel and in the Gospel from Mark. The people are hearing the words of the prophets. People that are chosen to speak for God, in Jesus' case, as God. And they are obstinate. They refuse to listen. They refuse to believe what they see. A Franciscan friar named William of Ockham, who was alive during the 13th and 14th centuries, he was a theologian and a philosopher. And there was other philosophers that had come up with this notion of Ockham, but his idea has kind of stuck in people's consciousness more significantly. It's called Ockham's razor. And what Ockham says is that sometimes when we try to come up with all sorts of complicated reasons why something doesn't happen, the most logical thing is the simplest. And he's talking about miracles. And he thinks the best answer maybe in some of these situations when we can only come up with all sorts of complicated reasons why something did or didn't happen, is that God intervenes in our lives in ways that we cannot predict and we cannot fully understand. We just heard in the gospel reading, so he was not able to perform any mighty deed there. He was amazed at their lack of faith. It's important stuff to be people of faith, to be proclaimers of the good news. Last night I received a tweet from one of my Dominican brothers who's a campus minister over at Indiana University. And it contained some not surprising, but still sad statistics as far as I'm concerned. To this statement, I know God really exists and I have no doubts about it. Baby boomers, and maybe some of us, I know some of us are here, baby boomers, and older, we respond to 70%. That we believe that statement. But the younger you get, the worse it gets. We get to Generation Z, which is our current college-age students. They respond positively 33% of the time. what's happened? Well, maybe we need to ask ourselves, how often do we fail to accept the gospel message of Jesus? How often do we maybe respond the way the people of Nazareth did? How often do we love one another as Jesus has asked us to? How often have we rejected or forgotten the poor, the lonely, and the hungry, and the prisoner, and the stranger in our midst? How often are we selfish? My brothers and sisters, God is speaking to each one of us. We have prophets among us today. God is asking us to examine how are we living out our faith in our own individual way. You know, God may not be speaking from the clouds or from a burning bush, but he might be speaking to us through the person right next to us, in the pew, or at home, or at work, or in the classroom, or in a podcast, or maybe our own mother, father, sister, brother, friend. That Dr. chooses not to believe in God miracles. You know, the English poet William Blake said 300 years ago, the person who does not believe in miracles surely makes it certain that he or she will never take part in them. When we stop believing, when we stop recognizing the prophetic voices around us, when we live in a world that stops seeing the miraculous around us, then our young people may see little reason to believe in God. They fail to see the joy in living out our faith. But what if the converse happens? We look like people of faith. We act on our faith. We recognize the prophetic voices. We see the miracles around us and live out the joy of our lives as people of faith. How then might our young people respond? Be still and listen. The voice of God might be right next to us. We might, if we have the ears of faith, be surrounded by prophets. We might, if we have the eyes of faith, see miracles all around us.